When we talk about network resources, we have to think about how data is being moved around the network. We break this down into two main models, the client-server model and the peer-to-peer model. Let's start out talking about the client-server model. The client-server model is going to use a dedicated server to provide access to files, scanners, printers, and other resources on the network. Now, administration and backup is pretty easy here because we have one central machine, this server, that all the resources are sitting on. And so we can go ahead and back up that server, and we've backed up all the files. We can configure that server, and we've configured all the accesses, right? This makes the client-server model one of the main choices we use in business networks. Now, when we look at the benefits of a client-server model, it gives us that centralized administration. There is one or a few key servers, and we can focus all of our effort there. That gives us easier management, again, because it's all in one or two places because we have those few key servers that we can manage, and it gives us better scalability because I can have all of my stuff in one place, and if I need to expand, I can actually expand outward using that through a cloud architecture or some other additional servers, depending on how I need to do that. And this will allow me to put things in tandem using load balancing, and it'll give me a lot more benefits than trying to run things under the peer-to-peer model. Now, some of those drawbacks to a client server is that it costs more money because it requires dedicated hardware and dedicated operating system software. So you might have to have something like Windows 2016 on there, or a Unix or a Linux build, or something like that. And this takes a highly specialized skill set to run all of these things. And so it requires these dedicated resources, whether they're machines or software, or that operating system, as well as personnel who know how to use it. So that's kind of the bad things when we talk about a client-server model. With all that said, client-server is still the leading model that we use in business networks. Now, let's look at the other side, the peer-to-peer model. This is where peers or other machines, like laptops and desktops, can share resources together directly. The administration and backup is very difficult because all the files are located on different machines in different places. For example, if I wanted to share some PowerPoints with you, and you're sharing some Excel files with me, these files are on both of our machines. And now we're going to have to back up both machines and manage both of them. And this is going to give us two sets of permissions on them and all of that other management. You see how this redundancy in that work, where we have to do multiple things in multiple places? Now, if I took that and I scaled that up to 50 machines, that gets kind of being a nightmare, right? Because we're going to have a lot of work there. That's the big drawback to peer-to-peer. Now, where is peer-to-peer useful? Well, if you think back a decade ago, there was a software out there called Napster, and this was a peer-to-peer file sharing program. Now, it happened to be used for a lot of illegal activity like downloading music without copyright and those type of things, but the concept behind it is what we want to focus on here. Each person who was part of the network gave and received files. It was a peer-to-peer sharing network. Now, the benefits of peer-to-peer was it was low cost. There was no infrastructure, no specialized hardware, no dedicated hardware, none of that stuff. Because there's just software and it allowed everyone to talk to each other as they wanted to and share files. You could pick a folder on your hard drive and share that out with the world. This allowed you to create resources and networks wherever we wanted to. So this was kind of the thing here, is that there was no specialized operating system, no dedicated resources, and it was very low to start up. Now, if I wanted to create a network and we had 5 computers, I might just turn one of them into a file sharing off my local laptop and you could all access it. It would be no problem. That's the idea of a peer-to-peer. But there's also some drawbacks because if my machine is off, now you can't access anything. Whereas if I had a centralized server, you still could because that server would be on 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Now, what are some of the drawbacks? Well, the biggest one is decentralized management. Everyone can own and control their own machine and decide what they're sharing and what they're not sharing. This becomes extremely inefficient when you deal with large networks or business networks, and it has horrible scalability. So if I wanted to run a peer-to-peer network for an organization the size of Facebook, it just wouldn't work. It would be horrible. You'd have to have centralized management for stuff. Otherwise, when things get large, they get lost. And so in business networks, we are really going to focus on this client-server model over peer-to-peer. For the exam, you do want to understand what a client-server model is and a peer-to-peer model, and really what the benefits and drawbacks are for each of them. All the benefits on the client-server model are drawbacks on peer-to-peer. And all the drawbacks on client-server model are actually benefits on peer-to-peer. They're basically opposites of each other. And if you remember that, you'll do great on the exam.